When it comes to wages, listen, there's a lot of different things people talk about around water coolers. But if you talk about the economy, wages always come up. I want to talk demographics. Demographics is something used to explain labor force participation. But in the same fashion, it isn't used to say that older workers make more dough, they're leaving, maybe that's an issue with wages. CEA Chairman Kevin Hassett brought that up. Your thoughts?
I think when looking at the wage picture today, we have to look at who are the real new entrants into the labor force. We're approaching our 10th year of this expansion, and I'm seeing most of the entrants into the labor force are those coming out of college and those that just have high school degrees. In fact, the last payroll number, the biggest component of job growth were those with just a high school diploma. Well, if you look at average hourly earnings and you throw in these low wage earners, it's going to keep a lid on average hourly earnings. But if you look at outside of that, you look at the aggregate, if you look at, listen to every CEO almost that's out there, they're having to pay more in compensation because it's harder to find good work. So I believe that wages are going up. They're going higher than the actual numbers reflect if you take out the components that I just talked about, and that there really is, for the first time in a while, real wage growth that employees can enjoy right now.
You know, this really is a huge story, and it's going to take time, I think, to get into the conventional wisdom of the market's view more directly. Another issue, divergence. Peter, it was a pretty cool movie, but in the end, can we go from synchronized global growth, I hate that expression, highly correlated markets and economies, to the U.S. still being a standout if we start to see the tide go the other way in Europe and Asia specifically?
I think it would be difficult. So the exports of U.S. goods is about 10%. You throw in services, it's about 15%. So we're going to get impacted by a global slowdown. And here's another thing that I think is important. Since 40% of S&P revenues is sourced overseas, let's just say earnings start to go down because of what's going on overseas. If the S&P falls, if the stock market falls, that's going to affect U.S. consumer spending. So if we just looked at the labor market in the U.S., the wage picture in the U.S., I'd say, okay, the U.S. consumer is going to be okay, maybe can weather anything going on overseas. But we are so intertwined to where the stock market goes that if this overseas weakness persists and starts to affect our stock market through sentiment and earnings, that's going to eventually affect the U.S. consumer and their spending habits.
You know what, Peter? And it all makes sense. It just doesn't really add up. But what you're really telling me in a macro picture is that we are so intermixed in globalism that we can get lost if others get lost, no matter how good our GPS is. Is that really the place we're in?
Yes. The only question is, when does it impact us? I think the stock market is no longer a discounting mechanism. They're only going to react when the numbers are in their face in terms of U.S. earnings.